Right, we're underway. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Neighbourhood Plan Full Council meeting for Tuesday the 1st of May. And first item on the agenda, item 17262, apologies for absence.
I've had apologies from Councillor Glenn.
From Councillor Glenn. We've heard nothing from Councillor
No.
Fuller. I believe Councillor Glenn has had to go to Heathrow, I think, to pick his wife up, who's flying in from China. So, do we accept apologies?
Yes.
That's item 26202. And item 263, declaration of interests. To receive and consider any declarations of interest from members and officers under Section 50 of the Local Government Act 2000, that's our Standing Order 35. This requirement applies only in respect of matters which are to be considered by the Council at this meeting. 26301, to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests. No. It's 26302, to declare any other interests. Councillor Chappell.
The Blackthorn Neighbourhood Plan Group having resurrected itself and having met on Thursday night when councillors may recall we were all somewhat otherwise engaged, I think I had better declare myself as a member of that group. And indeed, if time permitting, there's something that I would like to mention in connection with where they've got to.
Right.
Okay, I would also like to register my interest in the St Christopher's Drive Residents Group.
Right. I will say that I am both a resident, I am a resident of Glapthorne. I am not a member of either the Glapthorne Parish Council or the Working Party, Neighbourhood Plan Working Party there, but I am a resident of Glapthorne. 26303, to consider any other requests for dispensation. No. 26304, to report any gifts or hospitality accepted over the value of £50. No. 26305, to report any inappropriate gifts or hospitality offered. No. Right. 264, public participation from interested parties or members of the public. Nothing received. Does our one member of the public wish to speak? No. Okay. You didn't have to declare that. Item 265, consideration of requests from interested parties. We've had none of those either. Okay, item 266, neighbourhood plan. 26601, to receive an update on the neighbourhood plan regulation 14 consultation period. Right, we're well into it. We've had the public meeting at the Queen Victoria Hall, where we had a lot of comments from the public, and quite a few of them were not favourable. However, we have now had 3 surgeries where the comments have been extremely favourable. I had one, I think on the Wednesday, when this room was pretty well full with people in the afternoon. I had another one on the Saturday in here which was pretty well full. And the next one, a Monday evening, we'd only got, because this is used for bridge, we'd only got the Barnwell room. That was absolutely packed, with people standing in the corridor, listening from some distance down the corridor, popping into the room to ask a question and popping back into the corridor. After the meeting, the lady in the Glapthorne room, who I think had only got about 3 in her class, did say she had considered popping in and asking would we like to swap, but unfortunately that came too late. We could have filled the Glapthorne room, I think, that night. So we've had a huge number of people coming along, but I must say the majority of them have been very, very positive. They've been asking, they're wanting minor tweaks, but in the main it's positive. They want the neighbourhood plan, but they are asking for minor tweaks. A lot of the stuff revolves around section 106 and things of that nature. What are we doing? Sorry?
What's section 106?
Section 106 is the monies that the developers will have to pay towards supplying support services. That's utilities and various other monies for sewers, for electricity cables, gas, water, surgeries.
No. It's for extra things like extra school places and the surgery, not for
Full
services.
Or for outdoor
Not utilities.
activities and things like that, yeah.
Sorry to have to stop you.
Yeah, okay, fine. Councillor Oakes.
Yeah, it's not. One of the big bits is the education bit, which we have no control over whatsoever, and that's based on a formula that exists in terms of actually supplying education. There are one or two other bits and pieces, but I don't want to rattle on too much about this. I've been heavily involved in Section 106s over the years, so I'll just shut up really.
So that's where a number of the questions came from, was asking about services and where those things were coming from. I also had a session in here with the senior citizens from Abbott House, and a few of them came over on a very wet day. They came over, made a big effort, and they took a big interest in the neighbourhood plan, the small number that came, and again, they had some very interesting comments, and that again was quite positive. I think Councillor Chappell wants to come in on something from the Clapthorne plan, this might be an opportune moment to.
Okay, well, let me mention the Clapthorne plan a bit first. Clapthorne, of course, is that much further ahead of us, and they've already been through Regulation 14, and their paperwork has effectively already been through the hands of the independent examiner. Councillors might be quite interested in the treatment by the independent examiner of the position adopted by Clapthorne in relation to the land east of Cotterstock Road that lies in their parish, what I might call part of Site 23, for those of you who can picture the map. Clapthorne had wanted to say no development on that site, and had also developed policies around preventing coalescence between Clapthorne and Oundle. And the inspector hadn't had any issue with what was being said around coalescence, which is perhaps reassuring. What was somewhat less reassuring was the position adopted in relation to the living land site. Because what was said, as I've understood it, but I urge you to actually go onto Clapthorne's own website and have a look at this material for yourself, is that because in the Rural North Oundle and Thrapston plan, the site is identified as being potentially a suitable site for future housing development. And if you think back to when the RNOTP actually started and the plan period that was covering, which is actually to 2021, so it is actually still theoretically covered. That site, and in fact land off Stoke Doyle Road around the cemetery, were both identified as potentially suitable sites for housing development. And as I've understood it, the inspector said you can't, in view of that, simply have a blanket no to development on that site, because you will need to look at it in conjunction with the needs for development in what I might call the Oundle area. Now, of course, we know that we've made effectively over-provision in our plan against which we would have to have under the core spatial strategy. So hopefully we haven't got issues around, well, there isn't enough provision in and around Oundle, therefore we should be looking at sites, oh look, we identified this one. And of course we are in a slightly different position to them, because in relation to our part of that site, we haven't said no to everything. We have allowed within our plan for a limited amount of development on the site. But I think it's quite interesting that RNOTP's indication that that was a suitable site is actually being said to have a significance in planning terms, because it's not a site that was allocated in any which way for any future development. It was merely flagged up as being a potentially possible site. But that is actually being said to have a greater significance than, frankly, I would have expected. So whether that results in greater pressure, if you like, in relation to that area, both in terms of that part of the site which lies within Blackthorn and that part of the site which lies within our area, remains to be seen. But I think we should familiarise ourselves with what's said in there, because I think it will have a certain amount of impact upon us. I'm sorry, my voice is disappearing halfway through, right?
So are you saying that Blackthorn are now changing their minds about that site? They're not. They're still determined they don't want it.
Well, it's certainly the case that they are not allocating it for any kind of development. But they have had to change which is being said that they will have to change the wording in their plan in terms of their treatment of that site. So we might just want to look quite carefully at what they are saying. They in fact had a public meeting, well actually not a public meeting, they had a meeting of their working group on Thursday, and they are going to be having some public meetings, and it would therefore be perfectly possible for any of us who were interested, I think, to attend. It would be a public meeting in their village hall, and I've rushed out without the dates, so if anybody's interested, or I could perhaps circulate the dates. And in fact, I suspect you received a leaflet through your door today, because I certainly come home to find one.
I haven't had one yet.
I had a leaflet through my door tonight about this process. So that's a bit of an update.
Right. But presumably then Living Land are making strong representations under Regulation 16.
I anticipate that they will be doing so as part of that process as well. I suspect ultimately Blackthorn will still not designate it, allocate it for development, but where Living Land go with it all remains to be seen.
We've had a number of comments for Site 23, haven't we? To say that they would not like us to encourage development there on our bit of it. We're waiting for the landowner and developer to come back to us. We had a meeting with them. They were going away to rethink their plans. They led us to believe they'd got a new team on board, but it looks as though if Living Land is back in the picture again, then they're working through that instead of the family doing it themselves.
Well, I've referred to it as Living Land, whether or not that's
right.
current. It's just that I know that would be understood around the table, so don't get too hung up on my use of those words.
Right, okay. So whoever it is, yeah, we need to find out really what their plans are for our side of the boundary of site, what we call Site 23. But it looks as though Site A2 in Blackthorn plan, which is the other half of the same field, it looks as though they may well be pushing hard to develop on there. They were looking to put 30 properties on there, of which they were looking for something like 40% of them to be affordable housing.
That was their kind of selling point.
It was, yes. And Glapthorne at one stage were interested, to some mildly interested, or certain members of the working party were interested because they haven't got any affordable housing anywhere else in their plan. So they felt that that might be the place they could put some affordable housing. But we will have to see what they're going to do our side of the border and see what the inspector makes of Regulation 16 at Glapthorne.
I have had a freedom of information request for the letters that the solicitor that we have, you know, the
Yeah.
planning solicitor that drew up the letters for Glapthorne and Living Land.
Yep,
And I'm sort of in the process of dealing with that at the moment.
right.
But I've had to contact the solicitor, and so she's going to have to give me a price for how much it's going to cost for her to look at it and see whether we can release the letters.
Right. Yeah, she'll have to determine how
Yeah,
much of that is
because we did it all
redacted.
in closed session before.
We did, yes. Yep. So, yeah, that is going to have to be very carefully looked at as to what we can release. Okay. Coming back to our own neighbourhood plan, have we got any questions from councillors?
Not so much a question, but simply the feedback that I got over the weekend from more than one person was a disappointment that there was nothing very specific in the plan about additional parking. It being suggested that if we add that number of houses and that number of residents, particularly residents who might be living almost a mile away, whilst they might walk in to town, they're unlikely to walk back from town if they've been shopping. Consequently, they're going to want to bring a car into town, therefore they need somewhere to park it. Where are they going to park it? And I spent some time trying to explain that whilst we might welcome the idea of additional car parking in the town, we didn't own any land that was capable of being developed as car parking,
No.
nor indeed were there any obvious additional sites for car parking. The usual suspects came up in that conversation, one of which was South Road, Plainfields, direct line of sight from Cobthorne, which certainly the previous head was not particularly keen on seeing developed as a car park. And the other one, in fact, was the primary school site. People were saying, well, you know, that should be a car park. And I know that was actually something that we did talk about. We did actually have in an earlier draft of our plan before things were moved on.
Councillor Oakes?
It's worse than that, isn't it? Because we're going to lose our long stay car park.
Well, we're not necessarily going to lose it. The lease will come to an end, but it does have no other planning use at the moment.
Yes, but they're not going to leave. It's not going to stay as a car park.
Depends whether or not you could describe a car park as being an asset of community value, which I suppose it must be. And it hasn't got planning permission. And bearing in mind where it is, it's not the most obvious site to develop, although it's not equally a clearly possible site to develop. But
People have a time flats up there.
I would hope that it's retainable, but I share your concern.
But my point is, quite simply, that we're not in control of it anymore.
So a lease which
No.
gives us a
We
certain amount
can
of rights.
object on all sorts of grounds, or to all sorts of things that might be put up there. But we're no longer. No, it's been flogged.
Councillor Chester?
Why would anybody buy it if they didn't have a purpose in mind?
Quite.
They're not benefactors to the town. I think you're being a bit optimistic. I think we should think in terms
No, I
of
think we may.
provision.
I think
Actually, I
clearly
think
should.
it's quite serious.
indeed there might be a point in whether or not, long before the lease expires, whether approaches should be made about this council acquiring the land. Maybe on the basis of some sort of overage clause that meant that if it was ever future developed, they benefited.
Councillor Oakes?
I think it's the same thing as a cemetery. I was the one who brought up the business about the lack of cemetery space about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And I had a chat with Hanneke about it. It's the same thing, really. We're running out of space.
Yeah.
And car parks aren't terribly valuable.
No.
They just aren't. You know, but developments are.
I can't remember exactly what it comes under in the neighbourhood plan, but we have put that car park into neighbourhood plan. It is in there in order to try and preserve it as it is.
Well,
But since we don't own the land, it makes it somewhat difficult. But
Absolutely.
it would be interesting to see what opinion we get from the inspector when we get to there. We do lease it at the moment, which must give us some kind of hold, and the town does need parking. So it would be interesting to see what the inspector makes of the category that it's under. It might be we need to review that and make sure that there isn't a stronger category we can put it into, but I can't think, at the time we looked at this quite carefully, I can't think how we can make it any more protected than we have.
It would seem to me from the comments that I've had back from the meeting and the ones that Councillor Chappell's just mentioned, that people are very, very concerned about parking, and it would be, I think, the right time to push that as part of that public. That's the strongest thing that's coming out of the public at the moment that I can see is parking in this town. And if they want to, if we're going to help it go ahead, then that has to be the strongest part of our representation as it goes back to the inspectors and then on after that. Is that this town will become a nightmare very soon. If we don't do something about car parking, and it will kill and it will strangle the town, as people at the end of the meeting said. It will strangle itself.
It's strangling the town now with a perception that we've got a problem.
Absolutely.
Although the surveys have all said that there are parking spaces, if you drive around you'll find them, but the perception is that there aren't spaces, and that's the problem. That's what people feel, and that's what's driving people to shop elsewhere. So that is certainly a problem, and it's certainly something we've got to address somehow. But how we address that problem with no land available for us to acquire is a bit of a problem.
Can't we push it in the direction of the developers? I mean, that seems to be one of the things. If they want to build and make huge profits on the land around Oundle and in Oundle, they've got to, as I've said before, they have to put their money where their mouth is. They're the ones that should provide and help provide.
that's where section 106 comes in.
Exactly. But as we found out on other developments in the town, they promise and promise and promise, but they very rarely deliver any of the development promises.
Right?
Yeah.
Been there, done that.
Absolutely. But at this time, we have to hold on. That's why I was saying we have to give the teeth. We have to have teeth in this plan.
But those developments are not town centre developments. The developments, the 7 sites we've got for housing, are all on the outskirts of town. They're not in town centre, which is where we need.
They can provide. I mean, it's things like the Red Kite development on Herne Road. They promised on that affordable housing on that site.
That was in the previous plan.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But they did not deliver one single. All of it's been sold buy to let. Boom, gone.
Originally, there was a requirement to provide 40%.
None of it
But
arrived.
then that drifted away. And what you're now talking about basically is enforcement, aren't you? It's saying, you told us you were going to do this, what have you done?
And it's down to definition as well. What's affordable housing?
Well, don't get me there.
One of the things we could ask for is on these new developments is maybe ask the developers to make the roads slightly wider so that when people do park,
Absolutely.
they can actually still drive down them. Because some of the new roads, or Creed Road and places like that, you can't turn down, you can't get down the road if the car park both sides.
Creed Road is difficult. I've been through St Christopher's Drive, Sutton Road. I've been round there. There is quite a nasty S-bend. If anybody parks anywhere near it, you can't get round it.
But the roads are getting
I mean,
narrower.
Sorry?
They appear to be getting narrower, but they're not, you know, I mean, because in Custer's Drive, those
Yeah.
roads are quite wide in comparison to...
If you put a huge amount more traffic down that same stretch of road, it will be a considerable problem,
Yeah, yeah.
without a shadow of a doubt. One last thing on the neighbourhood plan. It came out at the town meeting. It was agreed that it would be brought up at the town meeting, but it had been prior to that in meetings which were effectively in closed session because of the commercial sensitivity. But we've had a couple of meetings. Councillor Hutton, the clerk and myself have had a couple of meetings. I think Councillor Glenn was at the first one as well, where we've been talking with Northants County Council, East Northants and ourselves, talking about Fletton Field and the county's intention to sell that land, or attempt to sell that land. And that has, it was decided at the end of that meeting that Heather Smith was going to say something at the town meeting, which she did. First of all, District Council were going to speak, and they were going to ask me on behalf of the Town Council to speak in support of the District Council's plan to put extra care facilities onto Fletton Field. Now, for a start, this council is rather difficult because this council strongly supported the idea of it being a village green status. We supported that initially. We spent money on a barrister to defend that position. When the hearing was extended, we again supported it. We had a letter from the District Council back in February 2016. They supported it as well. It was raised at ENC and they wrote a letter. The monitoring officer wrote a letter in support of it, supporting us. It seems rather difficult for us to, having done that, to then be seen to be supporting an application or a proposal, I should say, to build care facilities on there, even though, and I fully accept this 100%, the town needs some more care facilities, both the same sort of stuff as they've got at Abbott House for that kind of care facility, and also what's called extra care, which is extra as in outside of care facilities. And we turned down the applications here, and so did District Council, for one at Abbott House. And District Council have had this proposal when they heard that Fletton Field was going to be sold for development for 13 houses. The District Council came up with a counter proposal at the first of these two meetings in closed session, that instead of it being 13 houses, that it be a care facility. Now, we've had two plans in front of us at the last meeting that the County Council proposed, but we've asked them to go away and do a bit more work and to give us some more ideas. But I did stress at that meeting, I didn't think that the feeling in the town was that they wanted either housing on there or care facilities on there. Even though the town needs care facilities, they need to go somewhere, but the town is saying, and there was a strong presentation from the Green Group, the Green Spaces Group, that we retain Fletton Field as a green space. So, what's your thoughts on that one, please?
Something really instant though, don't be conned, because I think it is a con, by extra care facilities. It's development. It's private development by developers.
Yep.
They buy the land, they build houses on it, and they flog them off to people. It's got nothing, it will have nothing to do with this town. It will be people coming from outside, buying into extra care facilities. And it's backdoor development. That's the plan. And don't be, I feel very strongly about this, because as they said at the annual town meeting, if it goes ahead, we will lose it forever. It will just become developers' property, because they'll own it, they'll own the stake in it, they'll put the community charges into it, they'll put, if you buy into extra care facilities, you still have to pay the charges on the roof repairs, everything else. It's just, a money-making con from me.
Councillor Peel.
I personally think we should support the Greenfield situation, and I think the council should actually back them to the hill. I don't think, I agree we need homes for the elderly, but we also need those green spaces, and I think if we don't support this particular action, in the future, I think a lot of people will say, why the hell didn't we do this?
Councillor Oakes.
I agree with Councillor Humphreys, wholeheartedly. Our best ally in this is our law school, because that's about the last thing they want there. If you look at the geography and how they want to develop their school facility, it's patently obvious that they do not really want that place to be occupied by whatever.
No. Councillor Chapel.
Well, let me add my voice to that, because it would be utterly unacceptable for this council to fly in the face of everything we've been saying for just months, years, about that site, to back any kind of development, whatever it is. Now, however much some kind of development of that type may potentially be desirable, yes, but not there. That site needs to stay as a green site. Our own neighbourhood plan says it should stay as a green site. How on earth could we possibly support anything other than its retention if it is humanly possible? Now, if the local authority really are going to be capable of getting £2 million for it, then quite frankly the town is not going to raise that kind of money, and we're not going to be able to provide that kind of money. But if we end up talking about something rather more sensible, based on the fact that at the moment it is greenfield land with no planning permission for anything, if this council can find a way of helping the community retain it, we should, 100%.
Councillor Robinson.
Okay. Two things linked. One is, we need a plan going to the poll date of what we're going to do with the document we're putting in front of the people to make it saleable, and it's listening to people as we've had in the sessions, and particularly the dissenters. It's very important, so we can hear the good people who are in favour of it, but it's the others. Now, I've had a group of elderly people who were particularly concerned about the lack of the facilities for the elderly people in Oundle, and when it was talked about that field being facilities for elderly people or a green field, they're down one camp. So if we say we want to protect it as a green field, I understand, and it's logical, it's nice, but we must say where this other development's going to be. Otherwise, when it comes to the vote, those people are not going to be enthusiastically with us.
Yeah. I've got some. I think it's agendaed in planning. There's an item there which I can't say in public. Which, no. I should mention it in planning. If we mention it early on in planning, even those who are not on planning might want to just hear that one bit. It is commercially sensitive. I did mention it to the three of us and the district council at this last meeting after NCC had left the room. They didn't want to leave. They were interested to hear what I'd got to say in closed session, and Heather in particular took a long while to leave. I think she was hoping that we'd let her listen in, but it's commercially sensitive. But that may be a partial solution to that, but it needs a bit of wheeling and dealing and negotiation. But it might be a goer, and there are one or two others.
Get these people on board.
Yeah.
We need to show, you know, that
Yeah.
we're not doing the greenfield at their expense.
Yeah,
You know, these are people who want to stay in Angle, want to downsize,
yeah.
you know, who look
They do.
for properties that
Yeah.
suit them.
And we need people to downsize because we want to keep them in the town, but we want to reallocate those family-size houses for some more families coming in.
I
Councillor
think
Chester.
probably we're going to be saying the same thing. Can we just check how long we've got now until
I've got until
21st of
August?
August.
Yeah.
Is it August?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
the end of August or
No,
the
it's sort of
beginning?
in the middle. I mean, I think you really need to be ready before
By the
like
1st of
August.
really.
Yeah. But I've one other piece of news. Section 106 money that I said we could use for the skate park. I have been told that we could use that towards that land as well.
Towards Fletton Field. Brilliant.
Well, that's good.
I mean, it's not 2 million.
No.
Just say that.
I was going to say,
Don't get your hopes up.
It's a few zeros short of that.
Not being funny, but that
Not too numbers on that one.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
Having sat through days and days of the hearings
Yes.
in Northampton and here, and a great number of the witnesses who gave evidence for the to support keeping that green field were elderly people who've A, have used it for years and years, and B, find it's a nice, safe place to walk. And, yeah. So that's
Just
another
one,
piece of evidence.
sorry Val, but just before we move on from this, because I'm sure we need to move on from it, I was approached by a resident saying they, you know, we paid for all the leaflets to be distributed for all the public meetings and things. They said, well, they didn't get any. So there's a group, we thought the whole town was covered. There is an area of the town that wasn't.
Do you know
So-
whereabouts it is?
Well, it was actually Richard Tremelin who approached me.
We have had a dialogue with him in the past.
I think he,
That we can
I'm a
we
very
know when
close
we've
neighbour and
delivered
it's
things.
the first one I've had of any
Yeah.
council stuff for a long time, so I think it was more successful than normal. Rather just round the
I
corner.
know there have been issues with the Oracle, haven't there, before?
Yeah.
But
So
you did get one.
we got this one, yeah. I was,
Right.
Okay, well,
I was loved it last.
there you go.
Just in closing this item, when I met with Abbott House, I was over there for a function, for one of their functions at the weekend, the previous weekend, and also when they came here Friday of last week for their neighbourhood plan session, they are saying strongly that they very much appreciate their views over Fletton Field. They definitely don't want anything built out there in that area. And just the very final thing is the NCC's property people are saying they are going to make strong representation in comments within Reg 14 in our plan to try and get that changed from a green space into some other category so that they can develop it. They're going to try very hard to put that forward to try and encourage us to change that.
what a surprise.
Yeah. So we're in for a battle there. While Councillor Chappell having mentioned Site 23, there was at one stage a proposal some while back now for on Site 23 to have something like I think 70 houses plus a care home with capacity for 60 places,
Yes.
I think it was.
I can't remember whether that balance is quite right, but it was certainly a balance between residential use and an on-site care home. I can call it the front part of that development. I think that may very well have come forward because they identified that there was a possible need and thought, well, if we can tick that box, perhaps we'll get the rest of it in the back of it. Clearly, we took a different view in developing the plan in the way that we did. But it is fair to say that that's right, and of course there is another piece of land a little bit further along Cotterstock Road, but a much smaller piece of land which somebody is also interested in developing as a care facility. But we're not talking there about extra care of the type that was talked about on Thursday night by Councillor Humphreys a few minutes ago.
Have you had a chat with?
Unfortunately, my timescales have been such that I didn't manage that one.
Right.
I'll try and sort it out before.
But it may
we
be
have a
that,
meeting.
yeah, that is a site that has come up before for extra care, or for care, I should say, rather than extra care. And it may well be that that might well come back into the equation if they want to put something else on there to get some more money on that site. Councillor Oakes, and then we need to bring this.
Yeah, I'm going to say I'll try and wind this up very quickly. I mean, there was an application to extend Abbott House. We objected on, one major ground, in that it would really ruin the picturesque scheme, the vernacular of that particular area. And that was it, really. We objected on planning grounds, not on care grounds. And the other thing that was talked about in the meeting and said, well, look, you don't have to actually extend Abbott House. It could go somewhere else. And that was basically the decision that we came to at the time. We just objected basically because you've really got to look at house at Magdalen House and across to the cemetery, not the cemetery, the chapel, and go, you're rather ruining this bit of the landscape. So, but that was based solely on planning grounds.
Right. Okay, if there's no more on neighbourhood plan, we'll move swiftly on. Item 267, to approve the internal audit terms of reference and the additional requirements for discussion at the internal audit. You've got that in your pack, and you can see the internal audit service terms of reference there. That isn't actually the latest terms of reference. There are some later.
These are the ones that Danny sent me.
He sent it with it, did he?
Yeah, he sent me that.
Because that's number 1/08. I'd got one from a while back, 1/16, which is a later release, but there's not a huge amount of difference in them, so it's not particularly relevant.
He sent through to me.
Yeah.
Just the extra ones, these were a couple of things that, obviously the one about the Sainsbury's account, we discussed at the last meeting. And a couple of the other ones were the ones that Malcolm suggested. The reason I've got the NatWest closing is we thought that the post office were just going to take the money, which they will take the money, but they'll take notes and they'll take full bags of coins. They won't take, £368.76, which is what we bank at the moment. So it's going to mean that we're going to be able to bank whole amounts of money, but we will always have little bits left that we've got to gather up.
Pound coins have got to be in £20 bags.
And they don't take 4 bags at a maximum as well. So it's just...
That is normal practice in banking now.
It's just whereas before, obviously we've been able to go into NatWest.
Yeah, unless you're paying for cash exchange, then...
It used to be also a maximum of 5 coin bags. That is down to the bank whether they want to take more than that.
He said 4, but up until, at the moment we can just bank whatever we like with NatWest. So it's just asking her opinion on what we do with it.
We've got a facility to keep those sorts of channels. We've got a safe.
Well, we've got a safe, so we've just got to bank. But then because normally we bank the daily takings, and then we have that in a spreadsheet, so we know. So it's now going to be a bit odd. It's going to be messy because then we're going to be banking different amounts. So it's just getting her opinion. That one is.
Yeah. You increase your bank charges very often with banks if you bank odd amounts as well. You could, if you put in, say, £21.53p or something, you will pay as much in bank charges for the £1.53 as you paid for the £20, because the £20 goes in as a £20 bag item, and then you pay a bit more for the other odd bit, don't you? With a lot of banks.
You need some weighing scales and lots of coin
bags. That's what
I can provide the coin bags. Doesn't like the weighing scales.
These items are in addition to the items that were mentioned in the audit interim report that we got.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that terms of reference, it does say there are no limitations as to what we do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so that sort of covers you. And I just thought each year, if we just, if we have some specific things we want to ask about, then we'll just go through it and agree it each year.
There's questions. Malcolm wrote an email to us all referenced several things, but one was this internal audit, wasn't it? And access to the auditor. Is that, I know we talked about it at the last meeting, but is that now resolved?
As far as I know, a decision was taken at that meeting.
So it's only, I certainly had no vote at the last meeting because I didn't sign
No.
it, but I do agree with what Malcolm's saying in this note here. Is that in my past, whenever I've had auditors, I want the auditors to look at my department and tell me what's going on. So at the beginning of the audit process, I sit down to them and I say, these are where my concerns are. This is what I would like you to look at in addition to anything on your agenda.
That's what we do. That's why we've got those really, so that we can ask.
The last time we were talking about, Malcolm and Councillor Sparks not talking to the auditors.
So it's through the clerk,
Mm.
and that's what we voted on.
Yeah, okay.
So we made the decision.
Okay.
So, do I have a proposer to approve the audit terms? Councillor Fuller, seconded Councillor Peel. Those in favour? And that's everybody. Item 268, to receive information from Northamptonshire Highways and agree a response regarding the proposed 3-ton structural weight limit on Oundle North Bridge, Station Road.
So you got the bridge down.
That's going to be a bit of a problem, isn't it?
Just a bit.
It's effectively shutting our
Exactly.
down.
Yeah.
I did, at the meeting, I think she slipped that in, and I don't think anyone really sitting there really realised the full potential
No.
or the implication of what it actually means.
I can tell you I did.
But a 3-ton van is a Tesco's delivery van. So there's no X4, there's no petrol, there's no waitress lorries, there's nothing coming over the lines.
Except for access, it says.
Oh, in that case, we're all right, because I'm
So the
on side
X4
of
will
that.
get through. And it's access, it's just not for, so it does say except for access, I read that.
But it's extraordinary. I don't think
It's
anyone
not,
really...
it's only temporary, isn't it?
What, how is it temporary?
It's like the other bridge.
Until the
It'd be
repairs
like
have been
saying
carried
that
out.
was 3 years.
But at the moment you've got a
3 to 5
county
years.
council that's bust. How are you going to...
No.
How are you going to get it done?
It's going to be a few years, but, sorry.
Councillor Chappell.
That's exactly the point, isn't it? We have a county council that told us the cost was £750,000, told us at the same breath they haven't got it and can't afford it.
Yep.
Um, that would therefore suggest that this situation could go on indefinitely. That is not acceptable. Now, Northamptonshire County Council has had a pretty bad press of late. Members of government are well aware of the situation in Northamptonshire. It seems to me now is the time for us to approach the relevant government department and say, you have got to bypass the county council. You have got to fund this directly. Because if you don't, this town is going to be hugely adversely affected and or the bridge is going to fall down. And neither of those things are acceptable. £750,000 in the greater scheme of things is not a lot of money, if that really is genuinely the figure. But we have to get past it, and I think we should be making a direct approach to government.
Yeah.
We should enlist the whole of our MP as part of that. We should copy in Northamptonshire so they're well aware of what we're doing and why we're doing it. They might actually be quite grateful that we're trying to bypass them, because if actually central government did find a way of supporting this, it's got them off the hook as well, and it benefits us. So we've nothing to lose, everything to gain by doing it. I recommend we do it sooner rather than later.
Do you propose it? Because I think that's exactly what we should do.
I
If
think
it requires a proposition, I propose what I just said.
Did you get all that down?
Yes,
Yeah.
fine.
So we've got a proposal from Councillor Chappell. I won't attempt to repeat it.
Can I put an additive to that? I think if we're going to do that, we need to have maybe 2 or 3 councillors almost as a working party, dealing with that direct and so that it continues to go on, rather than sort of wait to the full council every month.
I'll volunteer.
We need to get any comments in by the 11th of May.
So we've really got to sort of
I mean, that's-
put a foot down and get going.
So you two
So it's got to be at this meeting, we've got to do it.
I'll volunteer for that one.
Sorry?
I will volunteer.
I've got a proposition here, we'll add council appeals bit to it that a working party,
Yes,
add that to the proposition if Councillor Chappell's happy with that. We've got a proposition from Councillor Chappell, do I have a seconder? Councillor Peel, those in favour?
That's sorted. Because this will cover time.
Job done.
Biggest problem,
Right.
they won't allow the bus across.
But should- and you hit the nail on the head.
I don't know if it came up very briefly from Heather at the meeting we had with NCC, which as I say was in closed session, but Heather briefly mentioned this bridge problem. I think it was there where she was saying that the X4 bus would have to go out over the other small bridge, and up towards Barnwell and
Yeah, and
Oh,
she mentioned that at the town meeting too.
out past the marina,
About all the construction.
and come back in that way, and then somehow loop through town, probably Milton Road, Black Pot Lane, then through town and back out again, West Street and over the bridge.
But isn't this a matter basically for us to explain just how this would affect the town? Because there are all sorts of issues.
Yeah.
If you want to go down Cotterstock Road, you know, you go out to Barnwell, I mean, it's going to be catastrophic.
Yeah. We'll take one more comment, but we have voted on it, so we shouldn't really.
Well, I think it's not, in a sense, what we have done is we voted on an approach to central government, which has absolutely nothing to do, arguably, with responding to that. The response to that, surely, is that this council should be indicating, A, the need to get on with it in terms of the county council because of the disruption, but B, I think we should be actually trying to suggest what are going to be the most workable alternative routes in our mind. Because otherwise it's going to be a bit of a free-for-all. And I'm conscious of all the flack we have had over the years about lorries serving developments. For example, going up and down New Road and causing chaos and people saying we should have ensured that they couldn't do it. Well, we probably need to specify what kind of alternative routes we think are acceptable, and against that, what is not acceptable. Practical problem is obviously, A, does any of us have the expertise to actually do that, and B, we've got to put it in hand very, very quickly.
Yeah.
But it may be that we should determine that that's what we need to do, and maybe anybody who feels that they have a valid view could contact the clerk, and the clerk makes the best of trying to assimilate that information and puts together the response as a result. Otherwise you'd be able to
Councillor
read
Roberts said we'd have a working party on it to do just that.
Problem is, how do we get a working party together and do it within a week?
That's very positive.
Yeah.
But I think,
Just ready to do it.
just a very quick
And I'm quite good on Maps, Google and PowerPoint. So,
It might be a good time to actually put some evidence in there of how much tonnage goes over that bridge a day. So if there was some sort of traffic survey of some form, saying that on an average day X tons goes over this bridge, in what vehicles travel it, maybe that would evidence it a bit more.
yeah, I think that's fair. I think the only other issue I'd have is I don't know whether it affects the whole line of the bridge, because that's a big bridge.
There's
It's a lot
39
bigger,
inches.
it's a lot bigger than South Bridge. And that, so,
The County Council have been monitoring this for the last 3 years
Yeah.
in great detail. They have all this information.
Yeah.
They also know how many of the, I forget the number of arches and how many of them are
Which ones are-
troublesome.
there's an awful
It's
lot
7
of
out of 13,
9,
which is
yeah.
something which is
Yeah.
certainly more than half.
It is. So there is a serious problem. So have we got a second proposition there?
The second proposition is that we put together that kind of
Work.
advice to the county council about the alternatives, and if that's best done through a working party, then so be it.
Yeah, I'm happy to propose
And
that.
I've only got Councillor Robinson on the working party.
I know.
No.
Councillor Oakes.
Oh, it looks like me then, doesn't it?
Councillor
Don't bother seeing it.
Well, I'm going to start doing this.
So- We've got a proposer from Councillor Chapel, a seconder please. Councillor Fuller, those in favour? That again is everybody. I will say on the first one to go to the Secretary of State, we've got a new Secretary of State, so this might be a good time to hit him, Mr. Brokenshire. You think we are a Brokenshire here in Northamptonshire, with all the things that are broken here. With Northampton Borough and their Sixfield problems and the county and now our bridge. But we've got a new Secretary of State. Sajid Javed has moved up to Home Office. So this new guy coming in, it will give him something to get his teeth into, won't it? Right. If we've all done on that, let's move swiftly forward. Please note that in view of the special and/or confidential nature of the business about to be transacted, it is advisable in the public interest that the public be temporarily excluded and they are instructed to withdraw. That's our Standing Order 3C. If we can close the doors, please. Right, we're back in open session, and I'll ask the clerk then to give us the proposition.
It's proposed that we defer the remaining items and have an extraordinary meeting on the 8th of May.
What time?
That's my proposal. I would say the normal time.
Normal time,
Time of
7:30.
7:30. Councillor Chapel is proposing. I've got a second of Councillor Chesser. Those in favour, please. And that is everybody. Thank you. I'll just quickly go around the last item, which isn't in closed session, shouldn't be in closed session. Item 17.273, any other relevant matters for report only. Councillor Robinson, anything you wish to raise? Councillor Peel?
No.
Councillor Chesser? Councillor Fuller? Councillor Humphreys?
No.
Councillor Chapel?
No.
Councillor Clark? No. Councillor Hutton? Councillor Oakes?
One very quick thing.
Yep.
It probably goes with planning really. I have been told by 2 people today that the MP building Specsavers are aiming to go in there. There'll be people in there.
Right. Councillor Oakes N? Nothing? I have nothing else to add, so with that I
I have
close the
one.
meeting.
I have
Sorry,
one.
Clarkus. Sorry. Hang on, Clarkus.
Just to inform you about, I've had 2 other Freedom of Information requests for information related to the Code of Conduct complaints. I have contacted the monitoring officer. She's away at the moment. She is aware of these Freedom of Information requests, and we will be sorting it out when she comes back on the 8th.
Right. These follow on from the town meeting,
Yes.
presumably. Right. Okay.
I was
Okay.
off.
With that, we close the meeting.